The Dalmatae were an ancient people who inhabited the core of what would then become known as Dalmatia after the Roman conquest, now the eastern Adriatic coast in Croatia, between the rivers Krka and Neretva. The Dalmatae are mostly classed as an Illyrian tribe, although for most of the history they were independent of the Illyrian kingdom which bordered to the southeast of them. The name Dalmatia appears to be connected with the Albanian word dil, which means sheep in English. The Illyrian town of Dalminium has the same etymology. Culture and society. Archaeology and onomastic shows that the Dalmatae were akin to Eastern Illyrians and Northern Pannonia. The tribe was subject to Celtic influences. One of the Dalmatian tribes was called Baradaste that later was settled in Roman Dacia. The archaeological remnants suggest the material culture was more primitive than this one of the surrounding ancient tribes, especially in comparison with the oldest Liburnians. Only the production of weapons was rather advanced. Their elite had to build stone houses only, but numerous Dalmatic herdmen yet settled in natural caves, and a characteristic detail in the usual clothing was the fur cap. The Nomadic Society had a strong patriarchal structure, consisting chiefly of shepherds, warriors and the chieftains. The main jobs had been the extensive cattle breeding, and the iterative plundering of other surrounding tribes and of coastal towns at Adriatic. Roman conquest. There were some iterative Roman conflicts with the Dalmatae lasting for 160 years. The main reason was the perpetual aggressiveness of nomadic Dalmatae against all their neighbors, and also towards the Ionian Federation, Greek-led Roman allies in central Adriatic islands, and so the pacification appeared inevitable. Dalmatae land was mostly a rocky calcareous country with many pathless mountains, ideal for infinite guerrilla wars. Thus Dalmatae erected there about 400 stony fortresses and 50 major citadels against Romans. The First Dalmatian War in 156 BC to 155 BC finished with the destruction of capital Dalminium by consul Scipio Nasica. The Second Dalmatian War was fought in 119–118 BC, apparently ending in Roman victory as consul L. Caecilius Metellus celebrated triumph in 117 BC and assumed his surname Dalmaticus. The Third Dalmatian War 78–76 BC finished with the capture of Salona by the proconsul C. Cosconius. During the Roman Civil War of 49–44 BC, the Dalmatae and Testimos sided with Pompey and continuously fought against the Caesarian generals Gabinius and Vatinus. The fourth and final conflict occurred 34–33 BC during Octavian's expedition to Illyricum because of their iterative revolts, and finished with the capture of the new Dalmatian capital Soetovio. The last revolts of Dalmatae under the federal leader Batin against Romans were in 12 BC and the Great Illyrian Revolt in 6–9 AD. Both were also failed and finished by a terminal pacification of Bellicose Dalmatae. Afterwards, the Dalmatae formed numerous Roman auxiliaries, cohors I Dalmatarum, cohors I Dalmatarum Miliaria Equitata, cohors II Dalmatarum, cohors III Dalmatarum Equitata c. RPF, cohors IV Dalmatarum, cohors V Dalmatarum, cohors V Dalmatarum c. R, cohors V Dalmatarum Equitata, cohors 7 Dalmatarum Equitata, and later the Equites Dalmatae. Religion. The major collective deity of Dalmatic Federation was the pastoral god Silvanus, as they called Vidasus. His divine wife was Tana, a Dalmatic goddess mostly comparable with Roman Diana and Greek Artemis. The frequent reliefs often accompanied by nymphs are partly conserved up today in some cliffs of Dalmatia in Imotski Valley. Also their temple used from 4th to 1st 1st century BC, was unearthed. The third important one of Dalmatae was a war god, Armatis, comparable with Roman Mars and Greek Ares. The bad deity was the celestial dragon devouring the sun and moon in the eclipses. A strong weapons cult was very specific for the patriarchal Dalmatae, and in the masculine tombs different weapons are widely present. The usual tombs were under the stone tumuli of kurgan type. After the classic Roman reports, nomadic Dalmatae were extremely superstitious, and they had a primitive panic dread from all celestial phenomena. Any view on the night stars was them forbidden in the fear of a sure death, and in the case of solar or lunar eclipses they repeated tremendous collective howling because of the immediate world ending, made hysterical suicides, etc. Linguistic affinity. The ancient Dalmatian language was part of the Illyrian languages, which were spoken in the western part of the Balkans. The name Dalmatae is connected with the Albanian word delm, which means sheep in English. During the Celtic settlements in the Balkans, the Dalmatian language was partly influenced by the Celtic language regarding personal names and toponyms. The original language of the early Dalmatae is scarcely known save a few toponyms noted by the Romans. Since the Roman conquest, town-dwelling Dalmatae were gradually Romanized, but shepherds in the countryside were assimilated more slowly and only partially. After the collapse of the Roman Empire, Dalmatian citizens continued to partly speak the Old Dalmatic Romance language. The medieval descendants of pastoral Dalmatae in Dalmatian inlands conserved an Eastern Romance tongue with a large number of Slavic loanwords, called more Lachian dialect. Persisting also in the Austrian Empire, it was chiefly spoken by 2,100 local shepherds around the recent town of Livno up to World War I. Then in Yugoslavia during 20th century, these non-Slavic pastorals under oppression were quickly Slavicized. What remains of the language is but a few curious non-Slavic toponyms around the Livno Valley, e.g., the rivulets Ivatit, Sturba, and mountain peaks Blenadorna, Rona, Ozerna, Karita, Mitra, Zuva, Drul, Yenit, Yunch, Shonizir, and others. Dalmatian National Party. The Dalmatian National Party is a minor political group which claims today inhabitants of Dalmatia to be descendants of Dalmatae.